Okay, hi everyone. So the agenda for today, I just updated it a couple of hours ago. So I added the 2 PRs. I don't know if there's any other updates from the teams, but let's see in a second. And well, I don't know specifically about project updates now, but there's a lot of backporting going on still. So I've seen few PRs for backporting 5.6 today. Not sure if we know without Nimrod exactly. I think everything is included, but we can take a look to make sure. And I think Matthieu, do you have any specific updates or only these 2 PRs that you guys opened? You want to go over?
Yeah, only the 2 PRs. I don't really have anything specific.
Okay, cool. So let's go over that. So I hope I'm sharing the right tab now. It should be. So in this project, I have these 2 in progress, and I also have these 2 issues we talked about last time. I don't think there was any progress. Only one I saw that Sanjeev, you did update the issue to explain it, right? So that
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the PRs. So this one, I think it's pretty quick. So let's start with that. It will probably be very quick here. Right, so you wanted the same test to be run against a different set of endpoints, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I saw that the change included a change of the name, and therefore it was just much more than relevant to the specific one. Okay, so do you want to say just a word about what?
All
What
I
did
did
you
in
use
this,
it?
yeah, I've been able to run it. So if there is any of the keys missing, I think AWS access key or secret access key, or any of these environment variables are missing, the namespace cache bucket is created as a NooBaa bucket. So if it runs in a default mode, and first it runs in a normal mode, and if any of the keys are missing, then it runs as it runs as a namespace bucket tests and the namespace caching bucket tests, but everything stays within the NooBaa buckets. If any of these environment variables are defined, then an external endpoint is used, and the source and target buckets are external to the system.
Okay.
And I actually thought about it, then there is an issue here because I'm using pre-created buckets in the external endpoint. So if this is enabled in as part of the pull request, and if the AWS access key, etc., are defined, I think this will start failing. So
you mean these the remote buckets?
Yeah. So as long as the AWS access key or target key is not defined, then everything is tested against NooBaa buckets.
Yeah, I see.
And the issue with this was IBM bucket creation is slightly different. I had to specify a location constraint, and I need to generate a random name for the bucket. So maybe use the hash code from the commit, and then create a bucket with that name, and that will make I think that will make bucket creation unique. But on Travis, I think if you can just run it as a regular bucket and as using the NooBaa buckets, everything still gets tested and passes.
Yep, I see. Okay, so this is the. I mean, we can keep on enhancing it as much as needed for the different cases, right? So the only thing I would probably go after that would be to have like all of our the set of our S3 tests, right? Something that just uses S3 as an interface. We could somehow provide a configuration, so like multiple configurations we want to run with, right? That would help to run, like, reuse the same tests for different type of buckets, type of endpoints, etc. So I think that's good. And so you're saying basically that this use local endpoint is, maybe I'm not
Yes.
following that. So that would be if any of these
Actually, I think
is
I
not
should rename
defined.
this. Yeah, if any of these is not defined, it creates everything is on the NooBaa bucket. So even the namespace, the caching bucket is created using NooBaa buckets, and there is no external bucket used at all.
So why wouldn't you just name the environment use local endpoint and say that this would be the environment you look for? I mean, wouldn't that be more?
Yeah, I could do
more imperative to that if you want to achieve that type of test, you set this flag to something, and then you provide some more, right, information. Okay, so that might be just a nicer, I mean, cleaner way to define this condition.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you can do like this, I don't know, or do this. It's true, or something like that. If you want to be more strict, for example, that would be just a true string. Okay, let me approve, and let's make this adjustment maybe in your tests if that's okay, and then we can go ahead and rebase and merge, I think, or
I need to fix this deep scan issue.
okay, yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at Matthieu, your PR. Did you see that I gave a couple of comments, and I think Liran did it well as well. So.
Yeah. I saw your comments, and I've addressed them.
Yeah.
To the exception of one. So yeah, I don't know for this. So yeah, it only applies for the NS cache buckets, but does it mean that it should be somewhere else, or that it should be named differently?
I think what we might do here, I mean, in essence, this config is okay, right? Because it is applied not only to the namespace bucket, but by default we don't apply it, right? But yeah. I think we would like to apply it, and then it will change the behavior for any bucket. And yeah. I don't think.
I mean, we can apply it. Actually, let me think about this for a sec. I think it automatically applies to any bucket. I haven't made this any.
Yeah.
I haven't.
No. So it does apply to any bucket. That's maybe the point about what we might want to push down a little bit lower in the stack where we decide to apply it or not.
Yeah.
And by, I mean, it follows from the fact that we want to set this configuration just for namespace cache buckets, for namespace cache, right? Behavior. And so I think we want that to be under the namespace cache configuration, for example. That would be a good way to set.
Where is the namespace cache configuration?
There's an object for that somewhere.
So just like a little. I see.
This one. You see?
Yes. Okay. All right. I will change that.
So let's do this. Move to into, right? Oops.
Yeah.
That's one. And the second one we said is instead of running that that logic here, we want to push the logic into namespace cache. But now let's see what this means.
Okay.
So the code here, let me split the view for this for a second. And okay. So the original code here simply calls read object MD for getting the ACL, and then it has just defaults basically.
Yeah.
It's not really doing not returning anything. So your change to call a specific, oh sorry, where is it? To use the actual specific get object ACL request in Object SDK is actually perfect. It's also good for this normal case, basically. And what we're saying is that now instead of just defaults being generated right here, we will push down these defaults into this request in every different namespace implementation.
What do you mean
And
by
you did it, right? This
yeah,
piece you
okay,
actually implemented, right? So in Object SDK, you called a namespace, and in every namespace, you implemented get object ACL and returned the information needed to populate the response.
Yeah, I just thought you were mentioning the default response that was
no.
there.
So I think the only place where you didn't do it, it's here, and actually, what we're saying here is that what will. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. What we used to be the code that we used to call here. This was this. I can't. Well, never mind. This call to read object SDK. Read object MD. Sorry. This should be what we call here inside now. So we are pushing down the old implementation down to namespace NB. That would be the default behavior for how namespace NB would behave. But all other namespaces, you added a custom or a better implementation for get object ACL, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me just complete this thought here, and then well, not return, but sort of you can do like now await that, and then say return, and exactly like you did before with the other namespaces where you returned these things, right?
Yeah.
Now we return just like we did before, right? So it will be, what was it, like full control.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
What was the name of our whatever? Exactly what was the code that was up in here, right?
Yeah.
So we are pushing down this code, and instead we are now using the more generic version of using it through the namespaces. So we're saying now, instead of having one implementation here that he reads object MD and fills it up automatically, we really want to delegate to the namespace to implement this request called get object ACL.
So wait, just a sec. You mean to replace what's in that else? Right.
The default info, yeah. That should be.
But then how
exactly
do we
what's here.
Okay, and how do we handle the case where we set the parameter to anything other than pass-through? I guess it won't be.
No, but then we are namespace cache. Now we need to go to namespace cache and implement that. And inside namespace cache, and that's what I wrote in the first comment. Right, we want this if, like, checking in which namespace cache mod we're operating in. We want that to be inside namespace cache source. Okay.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the main thing. The rest looks pretty good. So that's, I think I have it in my paste here, right? So that was, I think, the defaults. What's that? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Someone on the call wants to say anything about these PRs? Okay. So that looks good. Let's see. The one thing I did wanted to look at, it was if what we want to do with this inline range and not caching it. Do you guys feel like we should do something about it?
I think we should cache it. Then and that's yeah. Just like if it's a namespace, if the caching is enabled for namespace bucket, basically just ignore inline, read.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple to do. If we just, add this condition to the inline read, I think it's enough to prevent.
Early on, I was not sure, what's the purpose of inline read. Don't know whether there are other scenarios.
Yeah, I'll tell you what was the purpose. The point was that we actually didn't do it originally, but we thought there's optimizations there, and when we started discussing, we got this comment that someone said, yeah, you got to try this inline. So instead of head, just asking for head, go ahead and ask for some bytes back, because you're paying the latency anyway. So if it's a small object, you'll get the first range. If it's a large object, you don't waste too much. That's the assumption. So that's actually, I think it's a correct assumption, right? I think I'm really not paying much different latency in most use cases for of namespaces for this, for more bytes, for 4K another 4K bytes. But for caching here, and let me think about it for a second. So the benefit for caching would be for small files, right, as well. Since we would be able to get to do an inline get from hub, and that's it. Well, I think it's good. It would be nice to do that if we can. Let's just take a look at the code for a second and see if we can do it easily or not. So that would be in.
That's in namespace I3. Yeah.
Right. So this is another condition we just Sanjeev just added for that, right? Paul, you added. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that's one, and then if we do request this, we set it to, what are we setting it to? So we keep that information. Where's the response going to? Oh, so right, inside the object info, right? I think. Yeah, something about the body. Where is it? No. So where is the inline range here? Let's find this one. Okay, so with get object, we're doing read object MD, and then we first range data. This is it. Okay. Okay, so in here, so essentially what we didn't do for caching is handle this, perhaps, because the flow for caching would still be that we go through this read. This read would get into namespace S3 eventually in the hub, and we'll get back the hub response, right, inside there. And that should also be the response we get back here. But we might have, just ignored it. So here it is. Let me see. So so perhaps the only thing we need to do is just go the same way that when we read, we check for if we have a range, and this range. Oh, well, in the caching case, maybe it's not very problematic, but we might otherwise just ignore it and say that if this range doesn't cover the entire object, maybe we can say, well, just ignore it. Let's get this 4 kilobytes whenever we get the entire first 4 megabytes. So unless the object size is smaller than this range, well, we can just ignore it. But if it is, we can just then submit it to the cache. Right, so it's basically the same thing that we can then push to namespace cache, I think. When we read object MD, So in this case, we checked in the namespace MD. It's not here. Whatever hub right here. So this is, well, actually, even here, this can. Well, no. Namespace MD will be NooBaa bucket, and then we don't return a first range property on the object MD, but this one might from a namespace S3, right? And then we just return. Well, this is the revalidation case, and we return the hub one, right? So that's where we sort of end this flow here. And maybe what we can do here is check, right? So add here. Can I edit? No. So just add these lines here if this is the case, and we just submit it to the cache with some of, which one is the submit here? Well, I'll check in a second. Okay, so I'll just note that on the issue. Okay.
But if it's less than, if inline range, right? Let's see, what's the logic? It's less than what data need to be read. Then will be now be done, right? Is that right? It's only inline read. It's only be done if the object size is small, and then
Yeah, I think that would be an easy case for us as well. I mean, we don't care if I mean, for a large object, it's really, we can ignore it for caching purposes. It's not relevant. But for an object which we just, completely cached, it's pretty good.
what I'm trying to say is like we will not want to read data twice, right? We read data, like first of all read inline, then try to read, again for a large portion.
Why not? If we, I mean, so imagine that instead of, well, let's say this, I in the first case for a large object, what my pattern will be, I get a 4K, 0 to 4K, and then get a 0 to 4 meg, right?
Okay.
It's okay.
Your argument is like the first read, height object or whatever is is because we already perform, we are going to perform read over network, right? Reading another 4K doesn't add that much, right? Like
yeah, and even then, I mean, in our logic, we always align to 4 megabytes, so we would eventually just read the 4 megabytes. So, I think it makes sense for us to ignore this in this case, just because it's not the real reason why I think we need it. I think we mostly need it because of the small objects, where this is just just a waste to get them in 2 requests, I think. So in here, the only thing I want to make sure is that why did we use the start here? Well, let me take a look at that. I will just update this like in a few more minutes, but I don't want to keep everyone on the call. So that was what I wanted to cover today. I'll update the notes, and if you have any issues you have before next week, just ping me or add to the agenda. I hope you guys can edit the agenda as well if you want for the next meeting. I'll put an empty one for the next meeting so you can put your things over there.
Okay, I remember. Okay. Yeah, I would like originally also talk about the stats going to be added, the new stats, new metrics, the peak rate. Maybe I can
Okay, great. So I'll put it. I'll prepare it already for you to have it. Okay, that's good. Okay, guys. Thanks to you all, and see you on Wednesday.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.